got mail.
In 1997, that sound brought you joy every single day. But imagine if you had to hear that every single time you opened up Outlook for work. If thinking about checking your inbox every day gives you anxiety, this video is definitely for you. So as part of my daily routine, I'll grab a cup of coffee, open up my Outlook, and spend 15 to 30 minutes processing my entire email box. And I really want to get this out of the way as soon as possible so I can get some more meaningful work throughout my day. But despite my best intentions, I find myself checking email all throughout the day. But how do I stop? So in this video, I'm going to share with you a couple of macro philosophies I have about email and a couple of minor tips as well. So in the workplace, email is the single tool and technology that binds all of us. And we either figure out a way to control it or we let it control us. Over the course of my career, my relationship with email has had plenty of ups and downs. But over the last few years, I feel like I've mastered having inbox zero. And that's like the ultimate goal of a lot of people out there. So my first big tip about improving your relationship with email is one that is do as I say, not as I do. And that is to limit the amount of time you actually spend with email. So in my head, I want to limit the amount of time I spend on email to, let's say, like less than an hour a day. So my ideal would be to break that up into 3 parts of the day. Once in the morning before I start for the day, once after lunch, and then once before I leave for the day to make sure there's nothing urgent that came up. Now some of you might be asking, well, what if there's something that happens in between those times and someone's looking for a response in an email? If it's really that urgent, they wouldn't be emailing you. They would be texting you, calling you, messaging you, some other form of communication that is way more real time, hopefully. The second big tip I have is to limit the number of times you actually touch an email. So let's say you open up an email and there's a basic or simple response that's super quick. Respond to it right away. If it takes you less than a minute or 2 minutes, just take care of it right then and there. What a lot of people tend to do is read an email, think about a reply, think about how to handle it, and then put it into their backlog for the rest of the day. That amount of processing and reprocessing later on adds up super quickly. So make sure you get through your emails, especially the small ones, as fast as you can. The next big tip I have is about more complex emails. Emails that have a series of action items or require more thought or actually is a big project on its own. One of the traps that I see people fall into is that they use their Outlook as a to-do list. This doesn't work. If you have a complex email to process, take it out and put it into a productivity app that is meant for action items and to-do list. And make sure you prioritize those items so that you can get to the most important things first. The fourth big tip I have is that you don't have to answer every single email. Think about that. Not every email needs to be answered by you. And I have a big challenge to each of you. If you have an unread email from a week or 2 weeks ago that hasn't been touched, why do you need it? I would challenge you to mark all those old emails as read and move on with your lives. Now let's talk about a couple of smaller daily tips. Now, if you have work email installed on your phone, try to follow the same philosophies and don't be like me and check it just because you're bored or you're in between other things. Email on your phone has that same addictive quality as like Facebook or Instagram or any other app you might click on just because you have a couple minutes to burn, and it will quickly sink up your time. The second tip I have is to not say you're sorry in emails, unless you really mean it, of course. So I've seen a lot of emails start with a sorry or an apology of some sorts, and unless you really mean it, saying that often really diminishes the value of what an apology is. So my advice there is don't be apologetic unless you really have to be. The second piece of advice I have is around the urgency of emails. If you're on the receiving end of an urgent email, acknowledge that you received it and give them a time frame on when you think you can reply to it. However, if you're on the sending end of an urgent email, make sure it's urgent. Make sure it's actually urgent. In an urgent email, you should be able to tell the other person why it's urgent, the context, and the time frame. And like I've mentioned in my other videos, time is super important to me, so I will help you with your thing if you give me the context and the reason why it's urgent. And here's a hint, if you mark all your emails as urgent to me, nothing is urgent to me. Another piece of micro advice I have is to write good subject lines. So most people will not be following my philosophies of checking email at certain times of the day. So take advantage of that. Write crispy, good subject lines in your emails that then will create notifications that they're more likely to read. Another tip I have for crowded emails with a lot of people and a lot of conversations going on, use the @ functionality to call out specific people if you want them to act on something. I don't see a lot of people using this, but I use this a lot. And it's like calling on somebody in an open room saying, hey, I need you to look at this. Hey, I need you to answer a question. Hey, you're the expert on this. So call those people out in your email to make them have a call to action. So my final piece of advice is to use email in a way that fits your communication style. And email has been around for my entire professional career, so I'm assuming probably most of yours as well. Email is a technology that will continue to evolve and adapt. So don't stick to things that you learned maybe 10 to 15 years ago. And while there's not a 100% correct way to use email, I want each and every one of you to think about how you use email in your daily lives. And what other tips and tricks do you have about email that you'd like to share? And if you like this content, please like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.